Joining us now, Maryland Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen. Thank you for coming in to speak with us today about this.
Shannon, good to be with you.
Okay, so I know that I watched your remarks at Dulles Airport after you landed, and you said it's time for this administration to put up or shut up. So I want to talk about the evidence they've put together that they say shows an MS-13 connection for Mr. Garcia. They point to this Prince George's County Police Department gang report from March of 2019. They said he was observed wearing a Chicago Bulls hat and hoodie with rolls of money covering the eyes, ears, and mouth of the presidents, meaning of the clothing within gangs is to represent see no evil, hear no evil, say no evil. They say officers also contacted a past proven and reliable source of information who advised that Abrego Garcia is an active member, this was at the time, of MS-13 with the Westerns clique. He is the rank of Chicao with the moniker of Chele. So that's what they've put out there. One law enforcement source I talked to said, if you don't want to be associated with the gang, you're not going to wear the indicative clothing, you're not going to hang out with them. This is the report of the police department from 2019.
So, Shannon, they need to put up or shut up in court.
He says this like 5 times, by the way.
I want to read you what Judge Zinnes of the Federal District Court just found on April 16th. She said that they had presented, quote, no evidence linking Abrego Garcia to MS-13 or to any other terrorist activity, unquote. If they've got evidence, you put it before the court. Don't spread it all over social media if you don't think it can stand the test of court scrutiny. They're trying to change the subject. The subject, as you said, was they are disobeying the court order, and they admitted themselves in court that he'd been wrongfully abducted and taken to El Salvador. Instead of fixing the problem, they fired the lawyer.
Well, he's on suspension, and I did ask the Attorney General about that.
They upbraided him.
Okay, so this finding, though, was accepted by an immigration judge. Determined in April of 2019, says the determination that the respondent is a gang member appears to be trustworthy and is supported by other evidence in the record. And then from there was, in December of 2019, on appeal, the Board of Immigration Appeals also said the immigration judge appropriately considered allegations of gang affiliation against the respondent in determining that he has not demonstrated that he is not a danger to property or persons. And in that proceeding, legal proceeding, the burden is on him to prove that. And the judge, the appeal both say he didn't do it, and they believe the evidence they saw from police.
As you say, and you just indicated that, they never affirmatively found that he was a member of MS-13. They never, of course, charged him with any crime. And what the judge ultimately did in the immigration case was say that his life would be at risk from other gangs, if he was returned to El Salvador, which is why he got a work permit, which is why the members of his union, the sheet metal workers, are demanding his return. You know, you don't get a work permit if you are not legally in the country.
That's a lie. Stop right there. Stop right there. That is a fucking lie. You can cross the border illegally and get a Social Security card and get a work permit. Because as an immigrant, even though I'm an American citizen, I know people who did it. So this guy's full of shit. And that's where it pisses me off that Americans don't fucking know what's going on when it comes to immigration, because you're not a fucking immigrant. You're not an immigrant. You don't know any immigrants. Most Americans don't. They live under a fucking rock, or they're surrounded by people just like them. And I don't blame you for not knowing. But when you say shit like this, it makes you look so stupid and not credible when people like me know you're lying. Because I personally know people who cross the border, have a worker's permit, and have a Social Security card, and got Medicaid, and got food stamps. So he is a fucking liar. And when they finally get this guy on record that he is an MS-13 member, I want to see this guy on massive investigation, and every fucking American who was defending him is going to look like a fucking idiot. Because it's like, how can you put so much energy on somebody who's not even a fucking American? Like, it blows my mind. And then I was talking to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is like, oh, but remember, when, their due process is for everybody, including non-citizens. Dude, the guy had due process. What are you fucking talking about? He had due process. He had, like, multiple judges that he went through. Like, what, you think for you to appeal for political asylum there's no due process? Of course there's fucking due process. But of course, it's not the due process that Americans get, because the due process for immigrants for the immigration process is not the same as due process as an American who committed a crime, for example. Like, for example, Anthony, the kid who killed, he's gonna get the full due process under the law because he's an American citizen regardless of his actions. However, this guy, not an American citizen, he did get due process, but it's not the due process they approve of. So, of course, they want to say, oh no, it's not real due process. And now the Supreme Court ruled 9-0, so you're in the wrong. There's a constitutional crisis. But the fact that he just said that you need to be legal to get a worker's permit is a fucking lie.